Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started in just a minute here, allowing a little extra time. I see more people are logging in. Welcome to those of you just jumping on. Going to get started in just a minute. All right, I think we'll jump in. Well, welcome again to our webinar, Recruiting International Students with IDP Connect. Thanks so much for joining us. I know there are a ton of webinars for you to attend these days, so we really appreciate you making the time to be with us today. My name is Ellie Butler. I am Marketing Manager here at IDP Connect. Prior to this role, I worked at institutions for 9 years, King's College in Northeastern Pennsylvania and Temple University. And now that I am with IDP Connect, I'm really excited to be able to work with so many institutions and help connect international students to the right universities. I am joined today by Laura Holmes, Client Director for IDP Connect, who will be walking us through how your institution can benefit from a strategic partner like IDP Connect. Today's webinar will be recorded, and both the recording and the slide deck will be shared with you following the presentation. We encourage you to ask questions throughout using the question tool to the right of the main webinar window. And on the next slide, we'd just like to quickly introduce you to IDP Connect for those of you who may not know us. So IDP Connect is your gateway to the largest connected community of international students in the world. We are the institution-facing arm of IDP Education, which you may know as a world leader in student placement services and digital recruitment solutions, and we are also proud co-owners of IELTS. Through our physical network of student-facing offices in over 30 countries and our digital presence across our websites and our mobile app, we have access to the largest community of international students in the world, with over 100 million annual visits to our websites. And what makes us really unique is the depth of data that we have from our online sites, coupled with the global insights from our vast physical network. So this makes us really unparalleled in terms of what we can offer. So setting the scene for what we are discussing today, we obviously all know just how profoundly COVID-19 has impacted international education and student mobility. But on top of those challenges, we in the United States also have immensely increasing competition from other countries who have developed national strategies for international student recruitment and global education. So having government support and a national strategy is really effective in achieving these targets, as you can see here by the stars next to several of them, which indicate those who have already reached or surpassed their goals. And moving on to the next slide, we'll know that the US is obviously losing market share, as we just discussed. And of course, recruitment travel is completely at a halt. So many institutions have been reaching out to us saying, I can't do high school visits right now. I can't travel to fairs. I know that I need to get my digital recruitment strategy in order. So what can I do? And that is essentially the basis of today's discussion. So Laura will be walking us through how to identify the best opportunities for your institution and how to create your digital marketing strategy, how to have quality content that reaches prospective international students at every stage of the enrollment funnel, and ultimately how to measure your success. So with that, I will hand it over to Laura.
Thank you, Ellie, for the introduction. My name is Laura Holmes. I am the Client Director here at IDP Connect. I actually wanted to start with this slide, and I think the timing actually works out nicely because you may hear one babbling in the background right now. So this is actually a stage at looking at what is the new normal. So we all have to adapt these days. I always worked from home prior to COVID and having to make some changes, but I did not have the 3 that you're seeing here on the screen right now at home working with me. So if you hear noises in the background or my senile dogs barking in the background, I wanted to throw this slide up here to start with this, but also because I think that a lot of people on the call can honestly likely relate to all of the changes that are going on right now. So this is the new normal, and we do have to figure out ways to adapt. So I think that kind of sets the stage a little bit on where I want to go with the webinar. I am going to talk through the different tools and services on how we can adapt to connect with international students, as Ellie said, in a time when travel right now is basically at a halt. So I know a lot of you likely did a lot of trips and were on the road meeting with students face to face, and now we're having to make some adaptations. So I want to start with identifying opportunities, because I think that this is really an area that we really might need to focus on. As I said, adapting to changes is one of the areas that a lot of schools are probably having to do right now, looking at the strategic plan that you may have had in place. And a lot of the plan may have to change now. We may have to look at data and see and figure out what needs to be changed, because we're certainly having to change the way that we did things 6+ months ago. So one of the tools and services that IDP Connect has created is our demand tracker. And I'm going to take a little bit of a step back just to kind of set the stage as to where this information comes from. So for those of you that aren't familiar with a company called Hot Courses, 3 years ago, IDP had purchased Hot Courses, which runs and operates 11 international websites around the world. So international students can use these sites, and they can really drill down to find the best fit colleges and universities. So they're able to say where they're interested in studying, what programs they're looking at studying. They can say study level. So all of this information we have been collecting on the back end, so we know what students are looking for. And we've rolled it into this tool called the Demand Tracker, which really helps institutions be able to use this real-time data to make fast and improved decision making at your institution. So right now, I think fast is key. We need to look at the data and figure out ways that we can adjust. Certainly, there's several different ways that you can utilize this data. One way is you may look at potentially investing in some new programs or new markets. Through the data, you're able to really help to make decisions on what those markets should be. There's also a competitor piece that you can kind of see how your school is doing compared to other similar type schools and figure out if there are any areas that you might be able to improve upon. So those are some of the key pieces that you can do with this tool. The next few slides, I'm going to just show a couple of examples, because there's honestly so much that you can do with the tool that I could spend all day here, but I'll just give you a couple of examples. So on this slide here, you're looking at what are the top markets to reach students looking to study in the US. So the nice thing about the tool is there's so much data. We have millions of users that are coming to our sites, and you can really add on filters to make the search more relevant to your institution. So in this particular filter, I obviously added on the study destination of the US, because I wanted to see, what are the top 10 countries where students are searching at studying in the US. So everything that you're seeing on here is kind of showing up as what the top markets are. Some of you may say, why is the US number 2? That's kind of curious to me, and I can certainly explain this. If you think about it, I know a lot of the international student recruitment, especially right now, is actually done in the US, because you have so many students that are international students living here already at high schools, at community colleges, potentially looking to transfer. So it doesn't surprise me that the US is so high up there. We do find that it is a lot of international students that are utilizing our sites. So another way that you can utilize this information is really being able to drill down within a market and see where are the top spots to travel to or to market in. So right now, again, obviously travel is a bit restricted, but maybe you want to look at doing some digital marketing in a specific area, and you want to uncover, where within a market should I be focusing on? So again, on this particular filter, one of the things that I did was I took a deeper look at Indonesia. I added on a couple of filters. So one, taking a look specifically at students that, again, want to study in the US, But in this example, I added on an undergraduate filter. So, perhaps when the world opens up again, you may want to travel to Indonesia. What's the top spot to go? You can see kind of the top 5 cities up here at the top. Certainly, if you wanted to see a wider list of cities, you can do that, but these are areas that you may want to think to travel to. In the next slide, I kind of took it a little bit of a step further. I wanted to show an example of what are the best markets to find students that are interested in studying a very specific program. So I added on biomedical engineering. So I started with the main subject area of engineering and technology. I added in a filter to search for biomedical engineering specifically, and again, targeting the US. So you can also see here on the bar chart what the top countries would be to find students that are interested in this specific program. So it really enables you to take the data and make some informed decisions on where you can capture certain students that are interested in certain things. So, maybe you want to do a marketing campaign and you're looking to fill more seats in a specific program that may not have as much interest, but would do really well with international students. This is a really great way to be able to do that. So it gives you a much better idea, and then you have the data to back why you're making that decision. On the final slide and final example that I shared, I wanted to kind of give a real-time example of a school that may be looking at adding a new program. So perhaps you're looking to see, is there demand for a new program that you are considering? And if so, where can I be looking? So for this particular example, again, I started with the main filters of the subject area here was applied and pure sciences. I added on the sub-filter to look specifically at environmental sciences. And then I added, again, the US filter. So what you're looking at here is, yes, there is some interest in this particular program, and you can also see kind of what the top areas are as to where you might want to think about marketing that specific program. So here, for this particular program, the highest interest level is in India. So now I'm going to jump a little bit more. Once you are able to really sit down and create that strategic plan and you have all of the data that's backing those decisions, right now especially, we are going to have to adapt and think about, what's the best way to reach these students digitally? When face-to-face was such a big part of a lot of institutions' plan, it's really important to think about what are the key pieces to get going with creating a digital marketing strategy if you didn't already have one in place. I know lots of schools also had one in place, but now there is still that component of no travel. So even thinking a little bit more in depth of what else could I potentially add, or what am I not thinking about? So right now, unfortunately, the perception from international students on the US isn't all that great, and we really need to figure out ways to change this. So the way that international students are getting their updates is obviously through media, and media likes to focus, unfortunately, a lot of times on the negative. So in the students' mind, they're seeing things about rioting, about the handling of COVID. They're seeing different laws that are being passed by Trump, and they're thinking, I don't know if this is a place that I want to go to. Maybe I should be looking at other regions as well. So we really need to focus on the positive and get them to go away from the perceptions. Just kind of taking the perceptions piece one step further, I did add this slide in. So IDP obviously has several student placement offices in markets from around the world. So we did a very recent survey with students that, for the most part, had already applied for institutions to start out this fall. And they were looking at all of our major destination countries. So the major destination countries would be Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the US. And unfortunately, when you look at this chart, it doesn't paint the brightest picture for the US. The US essentially scored the lowest in nearly all of the categories that you're seeing here. So I know it's a little small, so I'll read it out to you, but the first one is a response to coronavirus. The next is safety of citizens and visitors, the welfare of international students, the economic stability of the nation, and travel restriction policies. So again, this doesn't necessarily paint the best picture, and it is perception. So it's not necessarily factual 100%, but it is very important that we shift the way the international students are thinking about us. One key piece that I really want to mention is that it's so very important to have different messaging and different tactics at different points of the enrollment funnel. So it's very important, that you're not only filling the top of the funnel, but you're also very focused on students that have also already applied and been accepted. So right now, students from the survey that I just showed you, they kind of fall within this range down here, a little bit further down the enrollment process. What's important to get out to those students is, what is your plan right now? What's your plan for the fall? Can students defer? What do the process look like? Getting that type of information out to students is really key, but you also want to not lose sight of the top of the funnel. So obviously with international students, I'm sure you're all aware that the process from start to finish of when students start looking at colleges and what the best fit colleges and universities are, typically is about 18 months. So you really want to focus at the top of the funnel, building brand awareness, making sure that students are aware of your institution, that they can find you, that they know of your institution. So you have to start thinking about what type of messaging should you get out in all of these different areas. So I did want to focus on some of the hot courses international websites. One additional survey that we did was to our registered users. And we asked students to select what online channels they use to research prospective universities. So they were able to select more than one option. And you can see, I know a lot of times when I speak to institutions, they say, yeah, we have a really great section for international students on our own website, which is great. It is clearly a key piece. It's the third highest thing that international students look at. But you also have to think bigger picture, that students really need to be able to find you when they start that very first initial search. So you need to get students to your website basically in order to get them to be involved and know the information about your school. So not only do you need to have a good website, you need to make sure that you're maintaining a social media site and all of these other things, but you first need to make sure that you are able to be found at the top of search. And that's what I want to focus on, is how we do that for you and the type of messaging that you need to get out there for students once they do find you. So I would say, content is obviously key. We talked about the negative perceptions right now. So my advice to institutions is really figuring out the best way to change that. So you have a ton of international students that I'm sure are very happy, that feel safe, that love your institution. So why not use that information? Take pictures, videos, student testimonials, make sure you're getting that information out to international students, especially prospective students that may be a little bit weary right now of the messaging that's out there. So these are all great examples of the types of pictures and videos that we should be leveraging to students, letting them know you are welcome, you are wanted, you're a key piece of our institution, and we really want you here. So I'm going to start with showing you how wide our network is. So IDP Connect actually runs and operates all of the hot courses sites that you're seeing here. So international students utilize our sites to really find the best fit colleges and universities. And once they're on our sites, they're able to search by program, study level, etc. So you can see that there are 11 different sites delivered in 10 languages. So our abroad site and our India site are both in English. You can see all of the other sites that are hosted within country. And the nice thing about this is we also offer the ability for students to be able to search in their own language. So for example, a student that was doing their search in Spanish would be coming across our Hot Courses Latin America site. So one reason why I think this is so important is it's really important to have a diverse strategy and not put all of your eggs in one basket and focus specifically only on one region. So you really want to make sure that your message is getting out there to everybody. Maybe you shift the message in different markets depending on what's most important to them. And that's something that we do as well, as we help make recommendations on what information to share with students in different regions. But it is very important to not only focus on one area where you're getting a lot of students already, because as we know right now, anything can happen where if you put too much focus on one region and something happens and you lose a lot of those students, you then are scrambling to figure out, hey, what's my next step? Where do I need to go now? So this is why we really focus on having a diverse focus and being able to get your message out across to as many people at one time as you can. So I know that the main question that I often get when I'm giving this presentation to institutions is, okay, that's great, but how do students find the hot courses sites to begin with? 83% of the students that are utilizing our sites actually start their search, as I showed in that previous survey, kind of at the very top. They're going to a search engine. In this example here, you see a student that's going to Google. They're searching study engineering in the US. But in this example, they're doing their search in Spanish. So the hot courses Latin America sites are showing up at the top. So here a student can click on this link and they would be brought to the hot courses sites. Really some of the things that set us apart, we're really focused on organic search results and making sure that when a student is doing this type of search, our sites show up at the top. And we're also focused very heavily on leveraging unique content. So that means the information isn't just copy and pasted from your website. We take the time to make sure that it is uniquely written. Our team of content writers are really focused on making sure that they will help and do the heavy lifting for you. But that also helps with SEO rankings and kind of sets us apart. So let's say a student clicked on this link, they would then be brought into the hot courses site. So here students are able to search by program and really get more information on schools that are a good fit. So we have a tool called Ultimate Search, and again, I apologize that the writing's a little bit small, so I'll read some of these for you. But the more information that a student gives in the filters, the better matches we'll be able to provide them with. So for example, this particular student has added in what subject area they're interested in. They added in that they're looking for undergraduate programs in the US. If you can see this small, there is a new option that we've added in, which is on campus with an online start. So I selected that as one of the filters. There's an annual tuition fees filter, so I added that on. There's additional filters that I didn't include on here, like you can share your IELTS and TOEFL scores, your grades, etc. So the more information the student shares, obviously the better matches we're going to be able to provide them with. So they will then get a list of schools that are a match based off of that criteria. And from here, a student can click on any of these links, which will bring them over to your profile. So we are really focused on making our profiles not like any other organization that's out there. We actually call our profiles content hubs. And the reason we do that is because we really want to help schools leverage their content. So that means pictures, videos, student testimonials, things of that nature, making sure that international students are able to easily find the information that they're searching for. I thought this was a nice example because you can see right up at the top, there's a COVID update that says this university offers programs that will start online and continue on campus later. We also have a what's new section where we often will say and recommend to schools, if you have a nice update that you want to push out to international students, send it to us. We'll get this updated right away. So this is an area that you can change as often as you like throughout the year. And obviously it's very timely right now. This, if you can see it, you can also see that they made an update on what steps they're taking to safeguard the campus due to COVID and what steps they're taking. So this is a good way for you as an institution to get your message out to international students, give them the information that they're going to be searching for. So obviously students want to know what the cost is, they want to know what programs you offer. So we encourage you to incorporate all of that into your content hub. So this next slide is just going to give you a walkthrough, and I'm going to kind of talk over it while you take a second to kind of look and digest. But this is a screenshot of a live profile on our site. So this is the content hub for University of Delaware. You'll see there's an overview section. This is actually from our India site, which is why you see kind of the cost written a little bit of a different way. But it gives students a nice look at what life would be like on campus. They're seeing pictures, they're seeing videos, they have all the information on entry requirements, any scholarships that you might offer. So really any question that a student might have, we make it so that the student can find an answer to that easily. We also have up at the top here, there's a visit website button and a contact institution button. So this will drive traffic to your own website. So that's kind of how that piece of how do students find your website, they can connect this way. So they're starting at the top, Google search, they find your institution, they click visit website, and they're routed to your site. There's also that contact institution button where a student can then inquire to you directly. So if they have questions, we will be sending those questions directly to you so that you can follow up with that student directly. The next piece that I wanted to focus on, I obviously was showing you the India site because it's in English, so we can all read it. But as I mentioned, we also run and operate international sites that are hosted within country and in local language. So as part of that student survey that I had mentioned that we did with registered users, we also asked students, how useful is it for universities to translate information into local language? And as you can see here, 94% of students said that it was either somewhat useful or very useful. So it's very important that you as an institution has content out there that students can read in their own language. So we also take this one step further and we create what we call translated microsites. So what translated microsites are is we create that content and we give you the ability to incorporate it into your own website. And this is really key because, as you know, especially on the undergraduate side, students aren't the main decision makers. A lot of times parents are going to also be obviously a huge part of that decision-making process. So the easier that you as an institution makes it for school or students to be able to find information and read it in their own native language is certainly going to be super helpful. And again, another important piece is that we do host it within country. So that's going to help you break into areas like China, where it may be a little bit harder to sometimes access those students. It is hosted on a .cn server. And all of the translations are completed by local in-house translators, which I think is another key component. So it's not a service like Google Translate where I know a lot of schools use it, but it doesn't always translate exactly the way that we want. So having an in-house translator that's taking that content and taking the time to rewrite it is also a huge value that I know a lot of our partner institutions certainly love. From here, I do want to go into a couple of products that we do offer as ways to stand out and to stay top of mind. Because one thing that does come up sometimes is, there's so many schools in the US, how do I stand out? So first, I will start by saying we are pretty selective about the schools that we work with. We don't work with every single school. Right now on the US side, we probably work with about 100 partners. But there are additional ways to get your institution to stand out on our site and also to stay in front of students and stay top of mind. So those are kind of the two areas that I'm going to focus on and cover. So the first is our new featured institution spot. I like to think of this as, if you're on Google, for example, and you're searching for something, you'll always see the paid spots up at the top, followed by the organic search results. That's kind of how featured institution works, except it's obviously highlighting an institution. So let's say a student goes to our site, they type in the criteria they're looking for. We can make it so that your institution is showing up as the featured institution. This example is nice because there's a video that plays. So if you have a video, it's always eye capturing to kind of be able to click on that for more information. But the nice thing is it also have a button that will drive more views over to your content hub. So it's really a great way to generate more views and more leads to your institution by having that be kind of right up at the top. And then of course we have all of the listings of schools that are matches listed right below that, where you're going to get a ton of leads. But it's just a nice additional way to kind of get a few additional clicks in there. The next tool that I want to go over is our audience extension tool. So this is essentially a retargeting tool, and I don't know if you know what retargeting is, so I'm going to give a little bit of a story to kind of paint that picture, because I wasn't familiar with retargeting when we first created this tool. However, once I had the true definition, I kind of thought, oh, I'm retargeted to all the time. And honestly, it works, at least for me. I'm the person that purchases things online all the time. So the way retargeting works is, let's say you're shopping for something online. So my example is I was on the Macy's site looking at a watch, and then I left that site to go check my email. So I went to Yahoo, and then I started seeing ads for the exact same watch showing up in front of me. That's basically what retargeting is. So it's really capturing that audience while they're already thinking about international education and studying abroad. So the way that it works with our site is it's even nicer because we already know the student is interested in studying abroad because they've come to our site. So otherwise, they wouldn't be on our site to begin with. So the journey for reaching out to these students and getting in front of them is student comes to our site, they're a prospective student, and then they visit an institutional content hub. Once that student leaves our site, they then go and check out the news on a different website, and then you're seeing an ad for that same school showing up in front of that student. So in this example, I was on the Michigan State Content Hub, and then I left and saw an ad for Michigan State, which is great. Obviously, that's the school I searched for. But another piece that's even better is that you can target specific audiences with this tool. So you can target by subject, by study level, by location. Of course, we can target students that looked at your particular institution, but we can even take it one step further. You can give us a list of your competitors and make it so that your school shows up in front of those students. So it's really a nice, unique opportunity to reach the students that are researching, key subjects at your school, at competitors. There's really high impact with this type of display advertising. So this is also a really great way to stay top of mind and get your institution in front of students while they're thinking about your school. So the next piece that I'm going to cover, and I know I'm going over this a little bit fast, so I have saved time at the end for any questions from the audience, but one key question right now, especially, that always comes up is, how do I measure success? How do I know that this is being successful? How can I show my boss that I'm getting a return on my investment? And so we do everything in our that we can to really help you be able to show what your results are and what your overall return on investment is. So the first piece that we do is we have created these dashboards. It really gives you some insight as to what's happening with your marketing campaign and your investment with us. It says on this particular screen engagement across IDP.com and Hot Courses International websites. So I will start by saying any schools, and some of you may be partners of ours on our student placement services right now, which basically means that you have an agreement to work with our counselors within country. We have the opportunity for those schools to have our leads go directly to counselors. So for example, we have 40 student placement offices in India. If a lead from India came in, we would then send that lead to our counselors to follow up for on your behalf. Now, if you don't have the student placement agreement in place, the leads would go directly to you as an institution to follow up. So in this example, there will be two columns that say self-serve leads, which means the leads went directly to your institution, and IDP leads, which means IDP counselors followed up with them. If you don't have the student placement side, it will just be all of your self-serve leads. But the point here is that you have access to being able to see how many leads you've received, from which market, what programs they're looking at. So this is just a snapshot. It doesn't go into full detail, which is why I wanted to kind of cover all of that with you. But I'll show you what each of these things mean. So essentially, when you log into your dashboard, you'll be able to see how many times your institution shows up as one of the options. Meaning, let's say a student says they're interested in studying engineering programs in the US at a graduate level. If your institution shows up on the page that the student is on, then you will be a search view. So let's say you're on page 1 of the results, you're going to show up as a search view. If the student only goes to the first 3 pages and you happen to be on page 4, that doesn't count. So it gives you a good idea of how many times your school showed up in that particular search that the student did. The next piece is institution views. So that's the number of times that a student viewed your particular institution. So, in this example, for the past 12 months, this particular institution had 275,000 views. So students looking at your content. Web clicks is the number of times that student was on your profile and clicked on that visit website button. So they took it one step further, left our site and went to yours. And then leads is going to be the number of email inquiries that you've received from our sites. So again, you can break it down and see where all of the leads are coming from. And you can kind of change up the view. In this view, I just did it to show kind of a pie chart. So there's a big 34% came from other, but you do get the ability to have that full list as well. Another area that I didn't take a screenshot of was you can also drill down to see what programs the students are interested in. So now you have this great dashboard that tells you in detail where you're getting the most views, where you're getting the most interest, what programs are getting the most views as well. And it also tracks your translated microsites. So you'll be able to see how many students have clicked on those translations from your website as well. So there's a ton of information that goes into this that you'll have access to. So it really can help you have a much better understanding of, you know, what did my purchase get me, and is it successful, and where is it the most successful. So that's the first piece. And the second piece is really helping you measure your overall ROI. So we have a tool which is called our enrollment matcher tool. Really, this tool allows you to upload a list of students that have applied or enrolled, and it will give you a match of students. So we can match students on a couple of different areas. Obviously, any student that inquires to your institution, it will be able to match those students, which I do realize that a lot of schools do with their own CRM. So it does take it one step further, however, and any student that is a registered user of our sites, it will be able to capture those students on this report as well, which I think is really important to keep in mind, because think about all of the students that end up applying that you never interacted with. They never inquired, they never met with you face to face, they kind of flew under the radar and you received an application and they ended up applying. I'm sure there's a ton of those students. So this will capture some of those students for you and give you a better view as to where you're getting the most conversion from. Excuse me. So that's basically kind of everything that I wanted to cover and walk you through. And like I said, I know I went through a lot of it very quickly, but what I would want to leave you with is some key takeaways. So really taking a look at things right now and using real-time data to revise your strategic plan is obviously very important. We're having to all make changes quickly here, and this will really help you make sure that you're making the best decisions. Also very important is to ensure that you have a robust digital presence at the top of the funnel. So we can't lose sight of the prospective students, because we have to be looking at students that in 2 years plus may be coming at your institution. We also want to make sure we're getting messaging out to those students so that you can be building your pipeline while also focusing on those students that have already applied, that have already been admitted. So there's lots of things to obviously be thinking about, and it's thinking about what type of messaging to get out to students in those different areas. So international students, again, this is kind of the next point. They need different messages at different points throughout the enrollment funnel. I would also say, don't put your eggs all in one basket. So really diversify your outreach. Focus on more than 1 or 2 or even 3 markets. It's really important to have a strategy that's going to get you out in front of students from around the world, especially because even when the world opens up and you're able to travel again, you can't always be in every single place that you want to. So having a digital presence online in as many markets as possible is really a great way to help you diversify. And lastly, make information about your institution easily accessible to international students and to their parents. So get the information out there that international students are looking for. And I'm sure that you as an institution knows the types of questions that you typically get from international students, but make sure it's available not only from your website, but even prior to that. Get it out there in some of those college search sites. Make sure that you get answers to students as early and as often as possible. So those are kind of the key takeaways that I want to leave you with. I'm going to pass it back over to Ellie, who's going to read any questions. If you have any questions, I guess I'll start by saying, please type them into the chat box right now. Ellie can read those questions out to me, and I will answer them if you have any questions. And certainly, if we don't get to your question, I'll make sure that I go through them afterwards and get an answer to you either way. So Ellie, I don't know if we have any questions coming in, because I probably should have prefaced it before to type in those questions, but I'm filling the air to give time.
Well, thank you so much for running through that entire presentation, Laura. Especially, I think those takeaways are really crucial given the current state of affairs, and it's so important to have a robust digital presence. We do have several questions coming in, so I will start with, does IDP Connect rely on organic student search or paid search and ads in order to get traffic?
So we're really focused on organic search. We're heavily focused on organic search. We do different things in markets to also stand out above the rest, but our primary way that international students are reaching you is going to be through organic search. So that's why I had showed that example of the student going to Google and doing their search in Spanish, and you could see the search results in the orders. So that was an actual screenshot of kind of how we appeared in that particular search.
That's great. Another question, do we know if students who are planning to study in 2021 and 2022 are currently researching? Are there any trends or data that show their interest?
Yeah, so we've done quite a few surveys just to kind of see where things are at. And the good news is obviously we saw kind of a decline in search in March, and I would say even early April, but we definitely have seen the search results starting to pick back up. So students are certainly out there, they're looking, they want the information, and we're seeing it go in the positive direction. And I would say even for all destinations, so even though there were some slides that kind of painted a negative look at the US, it's not all negative. We have really great schools here, and students are very much interested in coming here. So yes, for sure, there are students that are looking right now for future years.
Definitely, definitely. And I know some of our student buyer behavior research has shown that over 24 months in advance, students can begin searching. So
right,
they're definitely active on the sites. Another question, when we want to update our content hub, how easy is it to do that, and how quickly can the content be updated? We have our own university communication team that certainly would be interested in making sure the content hub is accurate and up to date regularly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say anytime that you want to update like pictures and videos, we can do that pretty quickly. So you will have a dedicated client service manager that you'll send those changes to. There's also that what's new section that I highlighted. Anytime you want to rewrite that and send us a new update, you can send it to us. The turnaround time is usually like 2 days, a couple of days that we can get it turned around pretty quickly. As far as the main content on the profiles, those typically we do an annual refresh on that. So the overview section, the things that don't typically change all that much, right? So scholarships and funding, costs, all of that information, schools tend to update that annually, but any of the minor changes on, what's new, we can get that pushed out, videos, pictures, things of that nature, those you can send and get turned around in a couple of days.
Excellent, thank you. A question about the markets that were appearing in the data. So someone asking why Japan, Korea, and Saudi Arabia are not appearing in the data. And I believe that has to do with those countries are covered by some of the regional sites. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, so Saudi Arabia would obviously fall under the Middle East site. Korea and Japan would actually fall under the abroad site. So we found that a lot of the students from those regions were doing their search in English. We actually did a few years back have sites in Japan, and last year we had a site in Korea, but because more of the traffic was actually coming in through our English site, the abroad site, we just switched it and drove all the traffic over to that one.
Fantastic, great, thank you. How long does it take for IDP Connect to build our Content Hub profile once we sign a contract with you?
Right. So because there's so much information, as you saw, typically the turnaround time is 4 to 6 weeks, just depending on how busy and how quickly you as an institution can approve the content. So as I mentioned, the way that it goes is we'll reach out to you, you'll have a dedicated client service manager. The main things we'll need from you as an institution are just going to be pictures and videos, logos, the easier bits, and then we'll say, if you have any key pieces of information that you want to make sure that we include, send that over as well. And then our team will write your English copy for you. So we'll write one profile for your India site and one for your abroad site. The reason that those two are different is, again, because we're focused on unique content. So they're not going to be completely exactly the same. And also different students in different markets are interested in different things. So the steps will be, we'll write all of that for you. We'll send it over to you as a Word doc so that you can look over it and make any changes. And then once it's approved, we'll set you live. So typically the turnaround time is about 4 to 6 weeks.
Excellent, thank you. And then final question. Oh, just kidding, we have some more coming in. question about pricing and costs of minimum packages.
Sure. So our packages are customizable. We do have, the recommended package is obviously going to be focused on diversification and including all of the different markets. The pricing, whoever asked the question, I will for sure reach back out to you and kind of get you that information. The reason I don't have a general answer is because there's so many different layers. So we have different pricing depending on the length of time that you commit as well. So we have a 1-year commitment, a 2-year, a 3-year. Obviously, the longer length of a commitment, the bigger discounts we can offer. And also because there's some customization that can go into the packages, it really varies from there. I would say on average, the schools that are working with us are kind of spending around 20 to 25,000. There are some obviously a bit higher, there are some a bit lower, but that's kind of the average for the partner institutions.
Yeah, good point, Laura. And I think what's interesting is recognizing the value of digital and knowing how much institutions would be spending on travel just to do one circuit of a fair or
right.
to do trip abroad to go to various high schools and fairs abroad, thinking of how much money that you would spend on that, and then recognizing the value of digital and just how many leads and how many students you're going to be reaching. It actually is really worthwhile, a really worthwhile investment.
Right.
Another question. We use Salesforce as our CRM. Can we integrate the leads to our CRM?
Yes. So very good question. We have different ways that we can integrate leads in some CRM. Salesforce actually happens to be one of them. So we do have the ability to connect you with our team and help you get set up with a direct API feed. We also use an app called Zapier that our team can kind of walk you through the ways that we can do that for you. There are some CRM systems where it is a little bit more challenging, but I will say that schools have been able to very easily, successfully take the information that we send you and update that and upload it into their CRM. So just, I guess, to back up and give you some information on how you'll receive the leads. Let's say a student is on one of your profiles, they submit a lead. You as an institution will receive a real-time email saying you have received an IDP Connect lead. It will have the student's contact details, their question, what program they're interested in. All of that information will be sent to you right away. But then every Monday, we also send you an Excel spreadsheet, which is in the form of a CSV file. So it does allow you to upload that information into your CRM. So there's kind of some workarounds as well. But I guess the long answer in the short answer was what I gave you. So yes, we can with Salesforce. With other CRMs, some of them may be a little bit of a different process, but we can certainly work with you to get you that information.
Fantastic. Is most interest from prospective students for undergraduate programs, or is there also a healthy interest in graduate programs?
I would say it's pretty evenly split, and actually maybe even slightly higher on the graduate side. And when I say slightly, it's probably, if you're looking overall, it's probably about 45% undergrad, 55% grad, but it really varies based on the market, because that's a generalized number when you're looking at all markets together. But obviously there are markets that are heavier focused on one way or the other. So India, for example, is obviously very heavy with graduate students. It's not to say that there aren't certainly pockets where there is very big international undergraduate interest, but overall as a market, I would say the numbers for graduate tend to be higher in areas like India, whereas looking at regions like Vietnam, we tend to have a heavier set of traffic that are looking at undergraduate. So it's a pretty healthy mix, to be honest. It's hard to just give a generalized number because you're looking at so many countries.
Excellent. And then what next steps should I take if I am interested in learning more?
Sure. So if you're interested in learning more, you're going to bring me right to my next slide. We're going to send this recorded version over to you. My contact details are here. Certainly, if you have a question, maybe if it's one that you just sent, but you didn't want it read out loud, or we didn't get to it, we have access to all of those, so I can make sure I get an answer to you. But I will send this around that also has all of my contact details. And certainly you can feel free to reach out to me directly.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for presenting and for answering all of those great questions. And thank you everyone for joining us today. With that, we will close the webinar. We hope that you stay safe and healthy and take care, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
off.